But we have no timetable for it. More to the point, there's no consensus on it, because we know some MPs are deeply unimpressed by the package that the coalition is looking at them. Amongst them is the Conservative MP Zac Goldsmith. And what do you say is wrong with the proposals, as we know of them, being put forward by the coalition?
I'm a big fan of recall. I think it's the single most important reform we could bring to this place, to Parliament, to really electrify politics. The government's plan, though, is called recall, but in real terms it's the opposite of recall. In my view, it's a stitch-up, because instead of handing power to voters, which is what recall means all over the world, it effectively hands power up to a parliamentary committee. In effect, it hands power to the party whips, it empowers the parties, not the voters, and for awkward MPs and independents and people like George Galloway, whatever you think of him, this is not good news. But it's not recall either.
Explain to viewers, why does it hand power to a committee of MPs?
Because it would be for that parliamentary committee to decide whether or not an MP merits recall, and they'd only be looking at financial things, so if the financial irregularities. But under the government scheme, I could still go to Barbados for 2 years and say to hell with my constituents. I could still join the BNP tomorrow morning, even though not one voter in Richmond or Kingston voted BNP. I could decide never to come back to Parliament. I wouldn't have broken a single rule, and I would not qualify for recall under the government's plans. It's really a nonsense.
Your alternative is what?
My alternative is the same as the recall that happens all over the world. Very simple mechanism where if enough local constituents sign a petition, usually around 20%, so it's a high bar, calling for a referendum, they earn the right to have one. Should Zac stay or should he go? And if more than half the voters decide to get rid of me, I'm out, and there is then a by-election. And the beauty of that is it completely breaks the safe seat system which we have in this country, where the only way you get rid of your MP is by voting for a party you don't support, which I don't think anyone should have to do. And it also means, even in marginal seats, that you can hold your MP to account all the time, not just every 5 years when the election happens. I think it would have a massive impact in terms of really keeping MPs on their toes and providing a balance, because at the moment all the pressure comes from the party after you get elected. This would provide a 3-line whip to your constituents at all times.
Let me just suggest what it would also do. It would inhibit MPs from taking unpopular stands, because they know at any time their constituents can say, crikes, we don't like that, I know, let's have a by-election and get rid of so-and-so.
But there's no evidence at all, and I have asked the experts, I've asked my opponents in Parliament as well. I asked Nick Clegg for a single example of a vexatious use of recall anywhere in the world where it has been successfully applied, and some good person's been turfed out for the wrong reasons. I haven't had a single example provided to me. Lots of attempts, but not one single success story. So I don't believe that. I think if an MP wants to do something controversial or take a contrarian view to their constituents, they have to go out and to make the case. And if they do that, people respect that. I know a Lib Dem MP who was hammered over the volte-face on tuition fees. He went out and about, he went to every school, he went to the university in his patch, and I would be very surprised if the anger levels before that process were anything like the anger levels afterwards. He would not have been subjected to a recall process, and even if he had, it would not have succeeded.
Isn't the political practical difficulty, though, from saying, well, actually, the recall thinking that the government's got isn't good enough, we need to do this, that the government will just say, oh, this is far too difficult, far too complex, let's just put it in the bin again? Well,
that may be true, but the recall package that the government's putting forward at the moment is not recall. It needs to be opposed. So if it's a choice between nothing and the package the government's putting forward, I will vote against it, because I think it empowers the party, not the voter. We need genuine recall or nothing.
Okay, Zac Goldsmith, thanks so much. That gives you some idea, I guess, why we have not had legislation so far, and it may be some time before the government actually comes forward with legislation.
Thanks, Norman.
Campaigners have criticised Ed Ball's plan